the telephone operator. For more than 100 years, this profession was the invisible backbone of human communication. When Alexander Graham Bell's telephone network began expanding in the 1880s, someone had to sit at a switchboard and physically connect one caller to another by plugging copper cables into the right ports. The work required patience, a clear speaking voice, an excellent memory, and the ability to handle dozens of calls simultaneously without losing track of any of them. At the profession's peak in the mid-20th century, hundreds of thousands of operators worked in shifts around the clock across every major city in the industrialized world. Many were women, at a time when few professional roles were openly available to them, and the switchboard room became one of the first workplaces where women held positions of real operational authority. Automated switching systems had already been gradually reducing headcount for decades, but the final contraction came fast. AI-powered voice recognition and natural language processing eliminated the need for a human intermediary almost entirely. What took decades of slow automation to partially displace was finished within a few years once conversational AI became reliable enough to understand regional accents, background noise, and incomplete sentences. The last large-scale telephone operator centers closed not with dramatic announcements, but with quiet workforce reductions, departments shrinking each quarter until the role effectively ceased to exist as a meaningful employment category. The advertising copywriter for direct response. Over the course of the 20th century, the profession of advertising copywriting developed from a craft practiced by a handful of specialists at major agencies into a broad professional category, employing writers across every sector of the economy. The specific subdiscipline of direct response copywriting, writing the sales letters, email campaigns, catalog copy, online advertisements, and product descriptions designed to generate an immediate purchase or inquiry, became one of the most commercially valuable writing skills in marketing. Practitioners studied formulas, tested headlines, analyzed response rates, and spent careers developing an understanding of how specific word choices drove measurable consumer behavior. Freelance direct response copywriters commanded significant day rates, and agencies employed teams of them to produce the volume of materials demanded by clients running continuous marketing campaigns. AI language tools demonstrated early and convincingly that direct response copy was among the most automatable forms of writing, precisely because it followed identifiable patterns and could be optimized against measurable outcomes in ways that gave AI feedback loops direct training signals. By 2023, major e-commerce platforms, retail brands, and advertising networks were generating product descriptions, email subject lines, ad headlines, and promotional copy entirely through AI with minimal human review. Marketing teams that once employed 5 or 6 copywriters to maintain their content output reduced to 1 or 2 people managing AI-generated drafts. The role did not disappear in the sense that someone still oversees the output, but the profession as a source of broad employment for working writers contracted faster than almost any other writing-adjacent role in the industry. The radiograph reader at routine screening level. Radiology as a medical specialty has existed since Wilhelm Röntgen's discovery of X-rays in 1895, and the systematic reading of radiographic images by trained physicians has been a cornerstone of diagnostic medicine for over 100 years. While senior radiologists interpreting complex or ambiguous imaging remain in clinical practice, the specific function of reading routine screening scans, mammograms, chest X-rays, standard bone images, and other high-volume pattern recognition-dependent imaging tasks has been transformed by AI diagnostic tools in a way that is restructuring how radiology departments staff themselves. AI image analysis tools trained on hundreds of millions of annotated medical images began demonstrating detection accuracy for common findings that equaled or exceeded average radiologist performance on specific, well-defined screening tasks. Hospitals and imaging centers in multiple countries began deploying these tools for first-pass screening review, having AI analyze a scan and flag normal or abnormal before a human physician reviewed the flagged cases. The volume of routine reads requiring direct physician attention dropped significantly in centers using this workflow. Radiology residency programs in some countries began reporting that the volume and type of reading experience available to trainees had changed because AI was handling the category of cases that trainees historically learned from by volume. The senior radiologist interpreting a complex presentation remains irreplaceable, but the staffing model that required large numbers of physicians to work through high volumes of routine screening images is being revised by almost every large imaging department that has adopted AI triage tools. The newspaper copy editor. Long before the word processor, long before digital journalism, long before the internet existed as a public tool, every newspaper employed a team of copy editors whose job was to read every article before it went to print, correcting spelling, fixing grammar, checking facts, adjusting tone, trimming length, and writing the headlines that would appear above each story. The work was skilled, meticulous, and entirely invisible to readers. A great copy editor left no trace of their presence. Their contribution was every error that did not appear in the final edition. The profession had existed in its recognizable form since the mid-19th century, when the mass circulation press first created a need for standardized quality control across high-volume daily output. Newsrooms once employed dozens of copy editors per publication. By the 2000s, digital-era cost-cutting had already reduced those numbers significantly, but the core function remained human because automated grammar checking was too crude to handle the contextual, stylistic, and factual dimensions of the work. AI language models changed the situation fundamentally. By 2023 and 2024, major publications were deploying AI tools that could perform initial copy editing passes across an entire day's content output faster than a single human editor could review one article. The tools caught errors, flagged inconsistencies, suggested headline options, and checked internal logical coherence with a consistency that did not tire at the end of a long shift. Entire copy editing departments were not replaced overnight, but the headcount required to oversee AI-assisted editing dropped to a fraction of what it had been. The profession did not disappear entirely. It transformed into something smaller, more supervisory, and considerably less accessible as an entry point into journalism. The legal transcriptionist. Court proceedings, depositions, legal hearings, and formal interviews have been transcribed by human professionals since the earliest days of organized legal systems in the modern era. Legal transcriptionists listened to audio recordings of legal proceedings and converted them into written documents formatted to the exact specifications required by courts, attorneys, and regulatory bodies. The work demanded precise typing speed, a specialized knowledge of legal terminology, and the ability to accurately distinguish between multiple speakers, handle unclear audio, and format output according to jurisdiction-specific standards. Transcription firms employed thousands of specialists, many working remotely, and the profession had a stable, if unglamorous, professional identity over more than a century of court-based legal practice. AI audio transcription with speaker identification, legal vocabulary training, and real-time output reached a level of accuracy that matched or exceeded average human transcriptionist performance across standard audio quality by the early 2020s. By 2024, the deployment of specialized legal AI transcription tools across law firms, courts, and government agencies had reduced demand for human transcriptionists so dramatically that training programs for the profession began reporting enrollment collapses. The audio quality that once required a human ear to interpret, overlapping voices, technical terminology, regional accents, was no longer a barrier. AI handled it faster, at lower cost, and with searchable indexed output that human-produced transcripts had never been able to provide as a standard feature. The stock trading floor clerk. The image of hundreds of people in colored jackets, shouting in a trading pit, arms raised, hands gesturing in the coded signals of open outcry trading, was one of the defining visual symbols of 20th century capitalism. The people filling those floors were not the executives or analysts whose decisions moved markets. They were the clerks, runners, and pit traders whose physical presence and manual execution were required to turn investment decisions into actual market transactions. The profession required fast reflexes, excellent short-term memory, physical stamina, and a specialized knowledge of the hand signals and procedural rules that governed open outcry trading. Major exchanges employed thousands of floor workers, and the career had a culture, a hierarchy, and a distinct professional identity that developed over more than a century of exchange trading. Electronic trading had already been replacing floor functions since the 1990s, and the transition accelerated through the 2000s. AI-driven algorithmic trading completed what electronic systems had started. The decisions that once required a human in a pit to hear, interpret, and execute are now completed by automated systems operating at speeds measured in microseconds, far beyond any human reaction time. The New York Stock Exchange trading floor, which once employed thousands, operates today with a fraction of that number, and those who remain serve largely a ceremonial and oversight function rather than an operational one. The floor itself is now primarily a television backdrop used during market close ceremonies. The bank teller. For over a century, walking into a bank meant standing in a line and eventually reaching a counter where a human being took your deposit slip, counted your cash, processed your transaction, and stamped your passbook. Bank tellers were the front-facing human infrastructure of the entire retail banking system, trusted, trained, and present in every branch of every bank in every town that had banking services. At the profession's peak in the late 20th century, the United States alone employed over 500,000 bank tellers. ATMs were supposed to eliminate the role in the 1980s, and yet teller employment remained relatively stable for decades because branch banking persisted and the social dimension of the bank visit retained value for a substantial portion of customers. What ATMs could not complete, digital banking began handling from the early 2000s onward. AI accelerated the final phase. Intelligent banking apps now process deposits by photograph, handle transfers by voice command, answer balance inquiries instantly, resolve the kinds of minor disputes and questions that once required a counter visit, and flag fraud in real time without a human reviewing the transaction. Mobile check deposit eliminated one of the last strong reasons to visit a branch in person. Bank branch numbers across most developed countries have been declining by hundreds per year, and teller positions have contracted proportionally. The role has not vanished, it has shrunk toward a specialist function for complex customer needs, but the mass employment category it once represented is gone. The medical transcriptionist. Physicians have never been typists. For most of the 20th century, the solution to this reality was a dedicated profession of medical transcriptionists, trained specialists who listened to physician dictations describing patient encounters, diagnoses, treatment plans, and procedure notes, and converted those recordings into formatted medical records. The work required a command of medical terminology across multiple specialties, the ability to understand dictation from physicians with a wide range of accents and speaking styles, and precise attention to detail given that errors in a medical record carried potential patient safety consequences. Medical transcription firms employed tens of thousands of workers, and the profession had formal training programs, certifications, and a professional association. The transition from paper records to electronic health record systems in the 2000s and 2010s changed workflows, but did not eliminate transcription as a function. It largely moved from paper output to EHR data entry. AI speech recognition systems trained specifically on medical vocabulary and clinical documentation formats have now replaced the human transcriptionist in most large healthcare systems. The same dictation a physician makes into a phone is now processed by AI directly into a structured clinical note, reviewed briefly by the physician, and entered into the patient record without a human intermediary. Companies that once employed thousands of transcriptionists began announcing large-scale layoffs from 2023 onward as health system contracts shifted to AI platforms. The profession did not so much decline as stop being recruited. Existing workers aged out while new hiring simply ceased. The paralegal research specialist. Law firms have employed paralegals since the 1970s, but the specific subspecialty of legal research, finding relevant case precedents, statutes, regulations, secondary sources, and legal commentaries to support attorney arguments, developed into a full professional role over more than 50 years of expanding legal complexity. Research paralegals spent hours or days in legal databases, reading case law, identifying relevant precedents, and synthesizing findings into research memos that attorneys used to build their arguments. The work required a working knowledge of legal databases, citation formats, logical reasoning, and the ability to identify which of hundreds of potentially relevant cases actually applied to the specific legal question at hand. Law schools and paralegal training programs produced graduates specifically for this function. AI legal research platforms, beginning with tools like Harvey and similar systems trained on legal corpora, demonstrated by 2023 and 2024 that they could conduct comprehensive legal research across major jurisdictions in minutes rather than days, with citation accuracy and coverage that matched or exceeded what a paralegal research specialist could produce in a week. Large law firms began reducing paralegal research headcount as the AI tools were integrated into workflows. The cost mathematics were immediate and unfavorable to human employment. A single AI subscription replaced multiple research positions simultaneously. The training pathway for research paralegals began contracting as law schools adjusted curricula to acknowledge that the entry-level research role their graduates had historically filled was no longer reliably available. The human translator for standardized documents. Professional translation as a human discipline has existed in organized form for centuries, but the specific category of commercial document translation, the translation of contracts, legal filings, immigration papers, business correspondence, technical manuals, financial statements, and government forms between standard language pairs, developed into a large-scale professional employment category over roughly 100 years as global trade and international communication expanded. Translation agencies employed thousands of professional translators working across language pairs, with rates set per word and turnaround times measured in days. The profession had certification bodies, professional standards, and a career ladder from junior translator to senior specialist to agency principal. Machine translation had existed since the 1950s, but remained too crude for professional use through most of the 20th century. Neural machine translation systems, and subsequently large language model-based translation, reached quality levels for standard commercial documents that made human translation of routine materials economically unjustifiable for most clients. By 2024, the vast majority of standard document translation was being handled by AI with only spot-check human review, and translation agencies that once employed large teams of translators had restructured around smaller teams of post-editors, specialists who reviewed and corrected AI output rather than producing translations from scratch. The volume of work per human had increased, while the number of humans required had dropped dramatically. Literary translation, highly specialized technical translation, and legal translation, requiring certified human signatures, retain a human function, but the mass commercial translation market that sustained thousands of professional careers for a century has been absorbed by machines almost entirely. The travel agent. Across the 20th century, if you wanted to fly somewhere, book a hotel, arrange a cruise, or plan a honeymoon abroad, you went to a travel agent. The profession required encyclopedic knowledge of airline routes, hotel chains, visa requirements, seasonal pricing, and the particular preferences of a rotating clientele who trusted the agent's recommendations the way they trusted a doctor's diagnosis. Agencies occupied prime storefront locations in every high street and shopping district across the developed world, and the best agents built careers spanning decades on the strength of relationships with clients who returned to them year after year. Online booking platforms began eroding the profession in the late 1990s and through the 2000s, but a significant portion of complex travel, multi-destination trips, cruises, group bookings, luxury itineraries, remained the domain of human agents because the coordination required
was simply too intricate for most travelers to manage alone. AI changed that calculus completely. Generative AI tools can now build a fully personalized 14-day itinerary with flight options, hotel comparisons, restaurant recommendations, visa requirements, local transportation, and estimated costs in under 2 minutes, adjusting in real time to budget changes, date shifts, or destination swaps. What once required a trained professional's accumulated knowledge and a 45-minute consultation can now be produced by a chatbot on a smartphone screen. Agencies that survived the internet era did not survive the AI era in the same form. The ones that remain have repositioned themselves as luxury concierge services for clients who want human contact as the product itself, not the information it delivers. The insurance underwriter for standard personal lines. Underwriting, the evaluation of risk, and the determination of what premium to charge for insurance coverage has been practiced in organized form since the Lloyd's Coffee House in London in the late 17th century, making it one of the oldest continuously practiced financial professions in the world. Personal lines underwriters working on standard products, automobile insurance, homeowners insurance, standard life insurance policies, spent careers learning to evaluate the risk factors presented by individual applicants and translate that evaluation into pricing decisions within their company's guidelines. The profession had formal training pathways, professional designations, and a career ladder that moved from junior underwriter reviewing standard cases to senior underwriter handling complex or non-standard risks. AI underwriting platforms trained on historical claims data, demographic information, behavioral data, and real-time risk signals demonstrated that standard personal lines underwriting decisions could be made by automated systems with accuracy that matched or exceeded human underwriter performance for the categories of risk most commonly encountered. Major insurance carriers began automating standard personal lines underwriting decisions from 2022 onward, with straight-through processing, applications reviewed and priced entirely by AI without human review, becoming the default for clean standard risks. Underwriting teams that once employed dozens were restructured around smaller groups handling exceptions, complex cases, and the oversight of automated systems. New entrants to the profession found that the entry-level volume work that once trained human underwriters now produced no job openings because the volume was being handled by systems that did not need to be trained through experience. If you want to help choose the next video topic, join our Telegram, links in the description. Otherwise, click right here to watch Every War Elephant Battle and What History Got Wrong. Next.